So I've chosen the Raid, which has become well known kind of amongst the martial arts scene internationally, and just has led to various Indonesian actors becoming decently well known, at least in circles of people that watch those films, and they've also appeared in some American television shows and movies recently as well. And this is kind of the launching off point into that scene from Indonesia, as well as kind of showcasing their form of martial arts that is practiced over there. And so it's, at its core, it's kind of, it has what a lot of the cult favorites of martial arts films have, and that, because it's relatively, unknown people, it's a low budget film, and it's a very simple storyline, all set in one place. And so basically all the film is focusing on is just kind of the action and the stunt work, and kind of the actors going against each other. And so as I said, it's a very simple premise. It's basically a tower dungeon crawl, as in this SWAT team is infiltrating kind of a project building that's like 16 stories tall, and they're essentially just trying to go from the bottom up to the top through the various gang members and criminals who are trying to stop them. It's kind of very reminiscent of the recent Dread movie that had a similar vibe, where he was kind of infiltrating a large tower apartment complex. And so it's basically this SWAT team goes in essentially on their own. They obviously get ambushed, and then they're fighting to survive. And the action is fantastic, and it's a wide variety, as they obviously go in with, it's a lot of guns and explosions to start off with, and then it slowly just gets more and more physical and hand to hand. It goes from basically just the guns down to knives and clubs, and then eventually just straight up hand to hand towards the end. And so it's just kind of a wild ride that just focuses on the stunt work, and kind of the talent of the various actors that have become widely well known. The three main ones are Iko. I mean, this is where pronunciation is going to get me. So it's Iko Uwais or Uwais, something like that.
Yeah,
Uwais. All right, and then we have Joe Taslim, who has obviously made his name easy for us. And Yayan. So Yayan, and then
Yayan
right, yeah, exactly. And so those are kind of the three main guys. Joe is the leader of the SWAT team. Iko's the rookie, also on the team, and then Yayan is the main antagonist, who is kind of the main henchman of the crime lord. And so that's pretty much it. And as I said, it's a relatively simple story. You're just kind of, you just gotta watch it for the various action sequences and see, how these people try to make it out there alive.
I've been meaning to watch this film for so long. I've had it on my computer, and I finally this was the excuse I needed to watch it.
That's exactly what I did too.
And it really lives up to the hype. It's an awesome action film. It's also a really well-made action film. It's not just... I mean, I compare everything to Fast and the Furious, which I think is just a really bad action film. It's just so cheesy and silly. The action looks bad. It's incoherent. I mean, some of it's okay. It's fun and dumb, but but compared to this, this is such good camera work, such a menacing, foreboding tone. The stunts are amazing. It uses this almost quasi-documentary handheld style that sort of puts you in the point of view of the SWAT team. But you always understand what's happening. The use of space always makes sense. The impact of the punches is so visceral.
Does it remind you of the Bourne movies, Jason Bourne? Because I think he's also some of the action movies. The action scenes in the Bourne movies with Matt Damon is also very good.
It does a bit in terms of like, yeah, just being a smart, well-made film, but I think it's a lot more brutal than Jason Bourne.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot more
Mhm.
bloody. And in fact, me and my partner had watched a few martial arts films last year in lockdown. We sort of got into like Jackie Chan films and whatnot, and we loved them. And I suggested this as one we could watch because she didn't want to watch Marlena. But I said, let's watch The Raid. And we started playing it. And immediately it feels closer to a horror film than an action film. Like the sense of dread as they get trapped in the building and they're being hunted down and people just like the residents are bursting out of doors and attacking them with knives. Like it feels like a horror film. And the brutality of it is just so intense. Like they're snapping limbs, blood's exploding out of flesh, everyone's getting shot in the head. Like it's full on. It's not for the faint of heart, but yeah, I loved it. It was right up my alley. What did you think, Silvana?
Yeah, it's I think the best action movie or Indonesian movie I've watched in many many years. I love it, and then it's also very visually pleasing. All the actors are quite handsome.
Oh yeah, that main guy is like a model.
Oh, and Joe Taslim, my goodness. Anyway, and I really also like Yayan Ruhian, who's the main antagonist, because he is a martial artist since he's very young. He started with karate, if I'm not mistaken, but then he ventured to other martial arts. So you can just see the flow of his movements, if different with the others, right? So, I mean, this guy, whenever he appeared on screen, it just, stole all of my attention in, any scene. So, yeah, I really love watching him.
And it uses a martial art called Pencak Silat. Is that how it is?
Pencak Silat.
Pencak Silat, which is an Indonesian traditional martial art. And it does feel very different to like kung fu or karate. Like they're much more, it's almost closer to wrestling. They're like throwing each other around a lot and there's a lot of grappling. Was there any other sort of distinctions you saw between this and other martial arts films in terms of the fighting?
From what I've remembered, Pencak Silat it's combining between offense and also defense. And there's quite a lot of philosophy behind it as well. And each region have their own styles. I'm not sure which one they use for this movie, but you can see, especially in like sport competition, like the Asian Games or something, you can see even other countries also have like a variation of Pencak Silat because it's a Malay martial arts. So yeah, I think, and also I think this movie also brought up a lot of attention to this type of martial arts, because I remember people are saying, I'd like to join this gym or club or whatever because I would like to be, Yayan Ruhian. So it's like the people who watch Hunger Games want to learn archery, and this movie brings back the curiosity again for this martial arts.
Yeah, I want to have all my limbs broken like the characters in the race, and then kicked out of a window. Oh man, that scene where he it's like a single shot of him fighting like 10 guys, and then at the end he just grabs a guy and jumps through the window, and the camera literally follows him through the window. Like it's amazing. Like you don't notice it because you're obviously only looking at the fighting, but the camera work is incredible.
Yeah, when also he basically like head slams Joe Taslim like into the desk or the sink or whatever, and it has that like weird angle where it like followed him too. That was an incredible shot.
And it's an advantage of actually having the performers skillful enough to do these moves. Because you look at, again, I'm going to keep bashing on Fast and the Furious. Like, they're all stunt people. They're all stunt people, so they can never show their face. So it has to be cut like a million times in order for it to seem like the actors are doing it. But in these, you can just follow them the entire time, keep them in frame as they're doing it. It's so much more satisfying and coherent.
Right, yeah. I mean, really what it is like the key thing is that like once the audience like understands that these guys are actually skilled, like honestly you can actually make whatever cuts you want. Like because we just know them like by reputation that we'll believe the stunt work that they're doing. And so really you can just cut it however you feel like. But yeah, obviously in general, they do much longer takes than most things. And yeah, in terms of the martial arts, I'd say it became so popular because it's more like visceral and wild than a lot of the traditional stuff from Jackie Chan or Jet Li, which is more about form and flow and style. Although Jackie Chan is wild too, especially with like Drunken Master and some of his other, but like he still treats it more as like a dance. Whereas these guys, it's just a lot of like, back and forth and just like haymaker after haymaker, where really you're just trying to survive and then like hit when you can. It's very back and forth and entertaining.
Yeah, it also reminded me a lot of John Woo films because there's a pretty large component of like gun violence. I mean, the first half of the film is the raid itself and them shooting and exchanging gunfire and whatnot. And the John Woo films are mostly like they're called gun kata. They're sort of like these action films that focus on big gun set pieces between cops and criminals. But yeah, I totally take your point about it just being much more brutal and rough than Japanese martial arts films or Chinese martial arts films, which are much more elegant and precise.
Do you remember how many arms that they use? Like weapons, sorry.
How many weapons?
Yeah, like I don't know, like knives or cleavers or sickle.
Yeah, it was mainly like knives and machetes.
And sinks. They use sinks occasionally.
Yeah, as well as improvised
and
weaponry, which is a big component.
Heroin laboratory sort of features and things, and at one point I think someone throws cocaine at another person to blind them.
Do you know they also use a scarf as a weapon in Pencaksilat?
Yeah.
I'm just throwing random facts here.
Yeah.
Because they can be used for strangling, grappling, and whipping.
Oh, really?
Yep.
That's cool.
They call it selendang.
Another thing this reminded me of is like a video game. Like this absolutely has the structure of an action video game. Like it sets up the premise. Like them riding to the apartment is like the opening cutscene of a video game, and then they enter, and each floor is like a different level, and they're slowly making their way up and getting tougher and tougher enemies. And then there's like the 3 bosses that get like hyped up that they have to defeat towards the end. It actually surprisingly had a lot more story than I expected. Like I thought the way this film was described to me was that it would be just nothing but fighting, which, most of it is. But there is this sort of subplot about the main character's, estranged brother is a member of the gang. There's like this sort of subplot about police corruption. So I kind of appreciated that. And it gave it this kind of romantic, I guess, element when the 2 brothers are fighting the big bad at the end. I mean, maybe this is a bit of a red button issue, but one thing that kind of irked me at the beginning was how they basically invaded the apartment and just started attacking residents indiscriminately. And it kind of frames basically all the residents as bad guys, except for this one guy who helps them survive. And I thought it was a bit of an unfavorable depiction in this kind of like, we're having such big conversations about, police brutality and Black Lives Matter and all these things. It was just a strange dynamic that the police were framed as, automatically good, and all the people in the apartment were just automatically criminals. They add a bit of complexity to that with police corruption, and some of the residents help them hide, and it shows you how the criminal empire is kind of like, subjugating the residents and whatnot. But did you guys have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that doesn't happen in real life.
What doesn't happen?
The police corruption, yes. But I've never heard of any, events or instances where there's like, that kind of residential raids, because usually the people are, very cooperative, and with the height of, terrorist attacks in the last couple of years, the police actually has quite a good reputation, so to say, especially the elite squad. And I don't know whether you heard about it, but last month there was a terrorist attack in the supreme headquarters of the police.
Really? Oh my God.
Yes, and there was a shootout because there's I didn't follow the news, but there's somebody who managed to bring a gun. It's a gun, or I don't remember what kind of weapon, but there was a live shootout, and yeah. It was
Wow.
just crazy.
Yeah. So you're saying there aren't these like super villain lairs that police are
I
afraid to
think
go near?
we do have supervillains, but nothing that dramatic.
Yeah. It's all a bit like fantastical, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be my main point. Is just it like in general with this genre, I treat it, as a fictional universe essentially. With almost any movie I watch. And this is probably telling, but like when I was watching it, as you were mentioning at the start, I was like, oh, they're being lenient, and the fact that like they're mostly just like knocking people down and tying them up, and it came to bite them in the ass, as those people then get up and like kill them, or you had the spotters, being kids or whatever. But like that's the way. Like honestly, it's the way I have to watch it. Being from America, like you just gotta treat it as a fictional universe, and you're in this for the action sequences, not a social commentary.
Fair enough. All right. Did you want to talk a little bit about the sequel, Matt?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of basically provide some recommendations on kind of where these actors have gone and their careers. So obviously the main one is the sequel, and it honestly it does what most sequels do, although it feels purposeful in this one, and to where it's effective, where it essentially because the sequel is a 2.5 hour long like crime epic. And they basically just throw every single type of action set piece that you can think of in this film. And so that's really like what its goal. I mean, yeah, like I guess you could say it focuses more on like an actual story of basically like it's a full-on gang war between two rival gangs, as well as the corrupted police being like the third party in it. And so really it's just, and Eco returns as the main character, and he's just basically this, one-man army, like trying to, infiltrate and then eventually just kind of survive this crazy war that goes on. He's just kind of like a one-man wrecking crew by the end. And so, yeah, it's just like one of those things where it's just like, it throws everything at you so that you're going to like at least one portion of it. But the other main thing is that, like pretty much every actor is in it besides like Joe Taslim. I mean, Yayan returns. Another guy named Sesib something, who's also become kind of well known for his stunt work in there. He is in it. Julia Stell is in it, who's also in another film I'm going to mention here in a second. She plays Hammer Girl. And then a third guy who's done stunt work on pretty much all of the Indonesian films as well, plays baseball Batman. So like I mean it's a long movie, but like they have every type of action set piece. They got one-on-one fights, they got two-on-one fights, they got a car chase scene, they got a prison riot. It's wild. So definitely very entertaining. So I would definitely recommend it. But however, the one I would recommend the most is currently on Netflix, at least in the U.S., and it's called The Night Comes for Us. And so that also has Eco and it has Joe Taslim in it, and they essentially play two like enforcers in the triad, although they're local kind of bonded brothers who grew up in Jakarta with a couple of other friends who also are in the film. And so basically they, because without much choice in life, they turn to crime to make money, and then they eventually get noticed and involved and work their way up through the triad to become one of, the top 6 enforcers or whatever. And so then eventually the film starts when they sort of kind of betray the triad, and then they're trying to like survive and escape out of it. And obviously the action is great. The main thing about this movie is that it is incredibly bloody. Like it's much bloodier than The Raid, and it's just like however bloody you think you imagine it is like quadruple that. And it is very intense, but yeah, it is.
Huh.
It is excellent action, but it is very intense, and it is wild. And Julia Stell is in it as well, who kind of plays some sort of government hitter CIA type agent who's basically like trying to assassinate various members of the Triad or whatever. So it's kind of the enemy of my enemy here. And there are some other stunt works in there too. They fight, other members of the Triad, and there's some great fights with all three of them, as kind of the usual 1 man versus 20 type of crazy action. But yeah, it just has some fun actors and characters in it, and is very intense. Oh yeah, and then before I forget, so Joe Taslim does a American series in the U.S. It's on HBO Max now, called Warrior, which actually is part social commentary about the Chinese Exclusion Act and Chinese migrant workers in California in the 40s, and it is excellent. And it just got renewed for a 3rd season. It's going to premiere on HBO Max. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend this next one, but Eco randomly did a kind of a campy martial arts series called Wu Assassins. That was on Netflix.
That was weird.
I honestly haven't checked. I assumed it was canceled after the 1st season, but it's got a really fun cast in there. I mean, you had the guy that was just in the Mortal Kombat movie. Tommy Flanagan is randomly in it. Summer Glau, Byron Mann.
Summer Glau from Firefly?
Yep.
What? I couldn't watch the first episode, so I don't know.
So yeah, it's a very campy, mystical type thing where you got the 5 elements to form Captain Planet here, but it's certainly entertaining.
All right. Yeah.
And then Yayan and Sessup were in John Wick 3, so there's some fun there. And that's about it.
Joe Taslim is also in the new Mortal Kombat movie, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he plays Sub-Zero.
Sub-Zero, yeah. I've been meaning to watch it.
Yeah.
Have you seen the new Mortal Kombat, Matt?
Oh, yes. I mean, it is what you would expect from a campy video game Mortal Kombat film. I think it pleased people.
It's funny. I'm always searching for a good video game movie or a movie adapted from a video game, and I feel like I never find them. But it's usually other films that aren't actually based on video games, like The Raid, that actually kind of live up to what I'm expecting.
Yeah, a good video game movie doesn't exist. But, Mortal Kombat is easily, one of the better ones in that particular crappy genre.
There you go. One other potential recommendation is the film that the director made prior to The Raid, which is a film called Merentau, which I think features a lot of the same actors. And in fact, one of the criticisms of Merentau, it got good reviews, but one of the criticisms was that it took too long for the action to start. So with The Raid, he basically just straight away started blowing shit up.
People were expecting The Raid. Oh my god.
So any criticism of Merentau, it's like, oh, you want action? Here's action. Here's The Raid.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right. Thanks, Matt.